Okay, so boom. I promise I'm not trying to be pedantic or pessimistic when I say this. Hear me out. Looking at the No Kings movement and this proposed purple revolution, looking at it, it's giving too little, too late. It's a little eye roll inducing for me because A, wouldn't have just voting for Kamala Harris, wouldn't have that just been easier, but more so B, if the goal is to build community and form coalitions to combat this administration and the policies that have been put in place, that would involve being in community with the people. A lot of these people were happily ready to vote against their interests. And not only would it involve being in community with the people you were happy to vote against their personal interest, y'all would be fine with what was happening if it wasn't negatively impacting all of these people. And by these people, I mean the people who are actively showing up to the No Kings protests, not all of them, but a lot of them admittedly were Trump supporters, were MAGA, and now they're reformed. And it's the same way with this whole purple revolution movement. A lot of these people who are showing up to these movements and protests would totally be fine with what was happening if it wasn't negatively impacting them. And with people of color or people on the left who know this is going to be a tough hurdle to scale for those who you are all of a sudden calling for community with, while also seemingly not being ready to take any shred of accountability or show the ways in just a year, in less than a year, during a very short time frame, you've seemingly deconstructed what led you to being MAGA in the first place. So let's talk about this whole No Kings protest, the Purple Revolution, and why it's falling flat with so many people. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel if you are new here. Welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we are talking about the No Kings protest that took place over this weekend, as well as the Purple Revolution that has been sparked on TikTok and is generating a lot of conversations that I think are very necessary, and why both the protests and this whole Purple Revolution is ultimately going to fall flat. Now, again, like I said, I'm not trying to be pedantic. I'm not trying to be dismissive. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I think with everything going on, I think there is a level of conversation that is required. And the people who are participating in these movements, specifically the people who were once MAGA and are now trying to turn over a new leaf, I don't think they're being honest or are ready. Some of them, not all. And I think I really don't feel like I should have to preface a lot of these conversations and discussions with some, not all. However, if it wasn't clear, let me be very clear. I'm talking about some, not all. Okay, so boom. So when it comes to the Purple Revolution, there is already a party that exists that is working towards all of these newfound desires. A lot of these once MAGA, but don't want to be blue, so they find themselves calling for a purple revolution. There is already a party that exists that is working towards all of these newfound desires these people claim they want to have. You know, unity, due process, respect for the Constitution, and respect for people's rights. That party is called the Democratic Party. And last year during the election, they ran a candidate, Kamala Harris. And if people didn't want any of these things happening, they should have voted for Kamala Harris when they had the time, not in retrospect try to undo everything they actively voted for, because things have now gone too far. And the only reason why things have gone too far is because the things that are happening now are impacting them and not the people they thought were going to be impacted, that they were totally fine voting against negatively. If you have not been on these TikTok e-streets, let me define what the Purple Revolution is very quickly, at least as I understand it. So the Purple Revolution is actually a book written by Nigel Farage. I'm not sure which one it is. But anyways, he is a leader. He is the leader who turned the UK Independence Party from a fringe operation into a powerful political party. He was a major proponent and vocal supporter of Brexit and ended up claiming personal responsibility for the decision of voters to exit the European Union that happened back in 2016. And he is also a very vocal supporter of Donald Trump. Now, on TikTok, though, The Purple Revolution has come to mean something different. The Purple Revolution has taken on kind of a different movement. I'm not sure if the person who has positioned himself as the leader of this movement, which by the way, he doesn't go by a first name, last name, but instead goes by God, We Need You Now on TikTok. I'm not sure if he was aware of the book by this title by Nigel Farage, or had any idea who Nigel Farage was or his role in the fringe political movement in the UK that ended up becoming a major wave and movement, kind of like MAGA. I'm not sure if this dude is aware of any of that background. But anyways, this new Purple Revolution does not refer to a single organized movement, but is used to describe a range of grassroots efforts and concerns surrounding the 2025 political landscape here in the United States. This movement, the Purple Revolution, it calls for a rejection of both major U.S. political parties, typically represented by the colors red for the Republican Party and blue for the Democratic Party, thus resulting in purple, which signifies the union of people across the political spectrum to demand change. So the person who has introduced this movement online, he is presently getting a lot of traction. He goes by the name of, again, God, We Need You Now. However, I think it's a little funny he isn't sharing his full government name, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyways, he has positioned himself as a leader of this movement, of this Purple Revolution, and is stating his demands. But this will ultimately fall flat if the goal is to bring people together from both sides of the aisle, because while his position is that this isn't about policy, policy informs so many of the lived experiences people deal with on a daily basis. And this guy does not seem to get that at all, or he does not seem ready to recognize and accept the role of race, gender, sexuality, and socioeconomic status / class in people's lived experiences and the role this has in policy. Now, like I said before, these people are former MAGA. They have no care for the policies they voted for. They only care that these policies and this administration is now targeting them, and they're feeling the negative impacts of everything that is happening. Because let's be honest, it was clear that Project 2025 was the agenda that the Republican Party, that MAGA was running on, and that agenda is what those people knowingly voted for. I firmly 110% believe that a lot of these people who are showing up to these protests or are taking part in the Purple Revolution and calling for change, they would be completely fine if this administration and the policies in place were only disenfranchising Black people and other people of color, women, the LGBTQIA+ community, the poor, the working poor, undocumented immigrants, and basically anyone that isn't a white cishet man. They would be totally fine with these policies. And this takes me back to this God, We Need You Now guy who's positioning himself as the leader of the Purple Revolution. I watched his page, and here are two videos that I find very interesting as it pertains to this movement, which leads me to personally believe that this is all a grift he is trying to profit from through engagement, but more specifically rage baiting. And again, I find it very curious and very interesting. He wants to position himself as a leader of this movement and talk about dismantling the administration, which PS is language this administration describes as Antifa in nature. Not only has this administration made it very clear that this language is Antifa, they have also made it very clear that they will be going after people who are against America. So after looking for leaders in this movement, while again, not using his government name, this guy wants to find leaders of this movement. Okay, but anyways, here are two videos of his that I find very interesting.
My, oh my, how fast the tides turned against me, huh? So, from what I'm getting from the comments is, ain't nobody ready for unity in this country. Because everybody was all okay with who I was. Everybody was okay with getting behind me for unity. Until everybody forced policy down my throat. Okay? So because my policies align differently than yours, it's not looking good for this revolution now, is it? That's 100% against this unity. 100% against this unity. So what you guys are telling me is you only had my back if I completely aligned with your beliefs 100%. That's not unity. That's the same cult-like activity that you guys claim that the right has, where you align with me 100% or you're not accepted. Tell me I'm wrong. You're going to come here with a list of demands from me. When I started this, you came here. I started this, and Badger started this. You guys came here saying how it was all great. It was great. Didn't say nothing about policy. Not one person. Still followed me, even though I said nothing about policy. And look at the gathering that came. Just shows you how much policy divides people. And that's sad because 90% of policy is personal life driven. And that's sad to me. But that video was a test to see how strong the unity really was. Okay? And the unity ain't very strong because the messages and comments I'm getting ain't very good. So all you're telling me is my views don't matter. My beliefs don't matter. I even got told that in conversation this morning, that my views don't matter. My beliefs don't matter because I'm white. And I'm Christian. Okay. Like I said, I don't force anybody to be here. I don't force anybody to be here. And I'm not going to keep trying to force people to be here. You guys are the ones that forced me to talk about policy. I don't think my views are bad at all, to be honest with you. I think they're right down the middle. Okay? I've never cared what race you are. I've never cared if you're gay or straight. So why any of that is being held against me? No idea. But hey, it is what it is. Okay? But I'm not going to continue to stick my neck out on the line and put myself in danger and put my family in danger for people who do not accept my beliefs, but only will unite with me and align with me if I 100% align with their beliefs. That will not happen. I'm 100% down the middle in the unity. I don't care what people do in their personal life. I don't give a rat's ass. Okay? I have my beliefs. As long as you don't step on my beliefs, I don't care what your beliefs are, and I'm not going to step on your beliefs. It's that simple. But if my beliefs ain't good enough, and I'm not accepted because of my beliefs, then I'm not good enough to put my neck on the line and put my life on the line for people who don't have my back. So let's have this discussion, Purple Revolution, because today is showing a lot. God bless and much love. Hey, good morning, everybody. So, this video is going to be about direction and a few of the main sticking points of what this movement is, so we can clarify this to people. Number one, the number one thing is to stop this administration. We got to stop this administration and anybody in government who is tyrannical. That is our job, per the Constitution, to stop any tyrannical government. That's number one. Have to get them out of office. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Number two, getting Israel / AIPAC out of our government and out of our politics. Their grubby hands have no business being involved in our government. We are not going to allow another country own our country. The last time that happened, it was England, and we saw what came from that. We don't want it to get to that point. We want this all to be a peaceful protest, revolution, movement, whatever word you want to use. That's our goal, is to do all this peacefully. But again, our second one, get Israel's grubby fingers out of our politics. No more AIPAC. If you take AIPAC, you're gone. There's no saving you anymore, period. If you took AIPAC money, this movement and this revolution is going to take you out of politics and out of government for good. And we are going to come after charges for you. Number three, we have to stop what ICE is doing. We have to stop the military from doing law enforcement jobs. That is not what our military is for. Because while our military is distracted doing jobs that law enforcement is supposed to be doing, they're distracted from actually defending our nation if we come under attack. You are taking our military people and taking them out of position to put them in a position to do something we already pay somebody to do. make that make sense. Train law enforcement to properly, that's the key word, properly handle the situation. I understand that illegal immigrants are breaking the law by doing what they're doing, just by being here illegally. But that does not mean that they needed to be treated like hardcore criminals and like their life does not matter. There's ways to do things, and we are going to make sure they are done the proper ways. Number 3, we are going to make sure there's no lobbyists. No more lobbyists, no more rich people involved in our politics. If they want to try to keep sticking their grubby fingers into our politics, we are going to make it to where they lose their entire company. You will go broke if you continue to try to put your fingers in our politics. No more. Number 4, we are going to make sure every single person that is in this country that is here to make a living, that is here to live the American way, that is here willing to take the oath to stand by Americans in times of battle, in times of need. We are going to make you included in everything. No matter what your religion, no matter your sexual orientation, no matter what your race is, no matter what your religion is, no matter whatever it is you are, you will be accepted in this United States. But with the amount of people we have in this country, nobody's ever going to accept everything that we do, and we all have to understand that not everybody is going to accept our way of life, and that's okay, because we're happy living our life how we want to live it, right? That's what matters. Worry about your self-happiness. Don't worry about if the rest of the world doesn't approve of what you do. If you're happy, live it, do it, and have fun doing it. We have one life. Have fun with it. Everybody will be included in this. And if you don't agree with that, then you're in the wrong spot. But every single one of my American countrymen and countrywomen, you are all welcome here. Every single one of you. And if you're sitting there watching this video asking if it's you that's included, yes, you. You're included. Everybody's included. So welcome to the Purple Revolution. Number 5. To me, this one's the most important. Bringing everybody together in spirit, in mind, in heart, and in soul. Because the minute we connect on all 4 levels of them, we are that unstoppable force that we are trying to become. Because when you're connected on all 4 levels like that, there's nothing, and I promise you this, I've experienced it. There's nothing that breaks that bond. Nothing that breaks that bond. You always got your brother and sister's back when you are aligned on all 4 of those things. So that's the big thing. Okay? Those are the 5 main sticking points right now. We're discussing more. Policy will come. But how can we discuss policy and what policy changes we want to make if we don't even know if we can accomplish our goal yet? So all that talk about policy would be pointless and wasted energy if we do not win this. And we got one shot. This is why taking the time to get to know each other is huge. God bless and much love.
Listening to what he said in that video, in and of itself, it doesn't on its face seem like there's anything wrong with what he is calling for. He wants to bring people together regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation, all of the things that comprise various identities that make up who we are and inform some of the experiences that we have on this planet, not universally, but your race, obviously, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientation, your socioeconomic status, all of these things as individual identifiers or in some combination of one another. Again, that intersectionality that I talk about so often, all of those things can absolutely have an impact on your lived experiences. So I think it is very disingenuous and I think it is dangerous to say, I want all of us to come together regardless of all of these things without recognizing the role some of these things can play in how people are treated and walk through the world. he does not seem ready. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these people were fine with the whole Project 2025, the agenda, all of those things that the Trump administration, all of the policies that they ran on. These people went to the polls and voted in a way that was very clear. They did not care about how these things were going to impact anybody else because they did not think those things were going to impact them. But now all of a sudden, it is impacting them in spite of their race, in spite of their gender, in spite of their socioeconomic status or their class, and in spite of all of these identifiers that they thought the administration was going to go after in others. They are now placed in the category of the others, but these are others that they were happy voting against, that they did not want to be in community with, that they did not want to be in unity with, because if they did, they would have voted Democrat because there is already a party that exists that upholds and exemplifies everything that they say they want. And this is why I find the whole both parties are the same rhetoric to be extremely infuriating, because there is actively a party that is in place now that occupies every single position, that controls every single branch of the government and the Supreme Court. And we see what is happening now. And were these things happening before, when we had a different administration in place for the Democratic Party? No. These things weren't happening, and they would have happened if both parties were the same. So this rhetoric is so infuriating, along with the idea of creating an entirely new political party, because there is a party that already exists, that is pushing for, that is running on, that is trying to push policies that will protect people regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of all of these things that these purple revolutionaries want to say don't matter when they clearly do matter. And it's almost like this arrogance for me, that it's not even an arrogance. I just think that it is, these people feel they have done dirty by MAGA, or MAGA has turned on them, or is no longer serving their best interests. But instead of them to, it's like they've indoctrinated, they believe this indoctrination of the evil left, of the evil Democrats, about the correct Democrats, calling them Democrats. I had somebody in my comments the other day, that was the first time I heard that before, Democrats. I was like, what the hell is this? So literally, you have these people who have internalized a great deal of hatred for the Democratic Party, that I think a lot of them still do not want to be at all associated with the Democratic Party. So they would rather make up an entirely new party and this entirely new revolution because, quote, both parties are the same, when they're not the same at all. When you are running from one party that is no longer serving you, instead of you to go to the party that would serve your interests, you have internalized such a great deal of hatred, or have not deconstructed what would lead you to be MAGA in the first place, that you just don't want to join the party that is already working towards your best interest, trying to create policy that would work in your best interest and do the greatest amount of good for the most amount of people. Like it's wild to me. I really hate this rhetoric that both parties are the same. And as soon as somebody says that both parties are the same, or they're not focused on policy, or that we should focus on people and not policy, that lets me know that person is an op and they are unserious. Because what do you mean you don't want to focus on policy? You want to focus on people when the policies in place are what is disenfranchising and harming the people. Like, they are unserious. This whole purple revolution is deeply unserious. This No Kings protest, which I will talk about later, while I don't want to poo-poo on anyone protesting, because to protest is to be American. It is one of the most American things about America, to be able to protest and have your First Amendment rights and have your voices heard. I'm not going to like poo-poo on anyone for protesting. I am, however, going to ask you, when you have the opportunity to make the right decision, why didn't you do that in November? Now you're trying to put the genie back in the bottle, as, like, what? We are experiencing a government shutdown right now as a result of many things, but one of the major sticking points is policy that would make it so millions of Americans could lose their health care. And who is fighting for that? Who is fighting to uphold that? Who is fighting for millions of Americans to have health care in the form of Medicaid, Medicare, who is fighting for millions of Americans. If both parties were the same, we wouldn't be in a government shutdown right now. We would, if you were focused on people, not policies. Again, okay, I'm getting off track. I'm getting off track because this gets me so heated, and I think I just may have to do another separate video on this because this whole both parties are the same rhetoric, it enrages me to a degree that I don't think I can even articulate. So anyways, though, those are two videos that I found very interesting of this God We Need You Now. I don't even know, a purple revolution leader, whatever he wants to call himself, because I'm not trusting this movement until and unless he shows up on the internet with his government name. I don't trust it. I think he's an op, and I think anyone would be silly to buy into this movement, especially as a leader. And I saw some people calling him out, and I'm glad that people are picking up on it because on its face, again, it sounds great, but when you are not willing to focus on not only policies, but when you are willing to sweep under the rug as a cishet white man to sit there and not practice intersectionality and not want to take into account how somebody's race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, how these things intersect to impact not only policy, but somebody's lived experience, and you want all of us to come together. It's giving white liberal, I don't see color, when the goal, which is what people of color have been saying the entire time, is to not judge us by our color, but understand how our color can impact our lived experiences. You need to see color, you need to understand color. You shouldn't, however, allow color to impact and inform how you treat people, how you receive people, discrimination and prejudice. The goal is not to not see color. The goal is not to allow color to impact and influence discrimination and prejudice. Another thing that absolutely stuck out in that video that lets me know he is not doing the work of deconstructing what led him to being MAGA in the first place and voting for Donald Trump was when he referred to undocumented immigrants as illegals. There is no such thing as an illegal person. There are undocumented immigrants, and it shows that there are no signs of deconstructing what ultimately led him to be a part of MAGA in the first place, like I said, and vote for Donald. He takes zero accountability. There was nothing in the many videos I watched of him that shows he has taken any accountability. And while he claims none of this is about policy, he brings up ICE in one of the videos, but it's not in the vein of stopping racial profiling and deporting American citizens, as well as the kidnappings and the wrongful arrests that are occurring. When he brings up ICE, it's not to talk about all of the harm that they are doing, but to simply stop the military from doing the work of police officers. And he is still, again, using language like illegals and illegal immigrants. And when talking about ICE, he mentions nothing about the undocumented immigrants who are trying to navigate the system the right way, because that's what they always say, do it the right way. He doesn't mention anything about undocumented immigrants trying to navigate the system correctly, but they are getting arrested when showing up to their hearings, and he seems not to care that ICE is doing that. He doesn't mention any of that. He doesn't mention ICE abusing American citizens, mistreating them, manhandling them, beating them up, throwing them around. He doesn't discuss any of that, and he doesn't seem to care about any of that. The only thing he cares about as it pertains to what ICE is doing wrong is that ICE is doing it at all instead of allowing law enforcement to do it. He wants to talk about people, not politics or policies, but the policies and the politics he supported negatively impacted real people, the people he's trying to be in community with. So we are past the idea that this isn't political, and him stating that we can't care about that is insane. All of this is insane to me, and it is people like him that are gaslighting people under the guise of change while still not getting it. They don't get anything because they're not deconstructing. And on top of them not deconstructing, there is a party that already exists for what they want. There were people actively voting for what he wants, but he didn't want that when he thought it was only going to harm those people and not him. Which brings me to, honestly, I just think my biggest issue in calling this a purple revolution is that it assumes it is joining people from both the left and the right, Democrats and Republicans, and that it's people who are leaving the left too. And from what I'm seeing, honestly, it's people who are actually moving further left in response to the lack of humanity that has been shown by this administration, while MAGA and people on the right are actually recognizing the ways in which they are being hurt, but they don't want to fully jump to the left. Again, there's that cognitive dissonance. Calling it a purple revolution doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's more red than purple because it is MAGA that is moving center right. They're actually moving more to the left, but they are not willing to jump to the left fully. They are not willing to leave the Republican Party fully. However, we are seeing that some of them are being disillusioned by what's happening as Trump's approval ratings fall. But anyways, what this man and other people are waking up to are the beliefs that people on the left generally have. So it's like, why would people on the left be leaving their ideologies in order to join up with a group of ex-MAGA who have done zero deconstructing, have never organized before, voted against everything that the left stands for, and now these people only want to come together because Trump is negatively impacting them, even though, again, people have on the left have been actively working against everything Trump is trying to implement and did not vote for him. This God, we need you now guy, the guys who was calling for the purple revolution, the fact that he is taking to TikTok the same way people are taking to the streets in these No Kings protests, it's emblematic. To me, anyways, it's emblematic of people who are fine with the performance of doing the work and wanting to reap the benefits while not doing the actual challenging hard work that is deconstructing your beliefs, reading materials, listening to people, being in community with people, and community building, doing that work that requires boots on the ground and actually getting into their communities that very likely already have organizations that exist to combat the very things that they are marching against. Oh my God, like I said, to protest is American. And so I will never fault anyone for exercising that right. However, what are you doing after the protest? These people will feel good about what they did over this weekend, but what are they doing Mondays through Fridays? The Purple Revolution, it calls for uniting moderates and independents from both major parties, along with a general call for grassroots action. But again, as it pertains to these grassroots organizations, people all have already been organizing. These people weren't bothered, though. They didn't go out and seek those organizations. They didn't show up because they didn't think anything would impact them. And as it pertains to uniting moderates and independents from both major parties, again, why not just become a Democrat? If it's not about parties or you don't care for parties, okay, then just vote in a way that does the most good for the most amount of humans. And if that means you're voting Democrat, then that's just what it means. You don't have to identify with a party. Just do the right thing. And part of the reason why we are here is because people spend time and energy treating politics like a team sport where one team wins and the other team loses. And we gloat about it, on Monday morning. Then we go about our week. But we are beyond that. We are past that. It's not about parties, it's about people. But when we think about parties, if we're talking about parties, there is one party that is actively for the people and one who is actively working against the people. We do not need a purple revolution. We need people to be honest about why they would vote in a way that would harm so many people. And now that that harm is actually impacting them, now they want to work towards undoing that harm. The people who are showing up to this No Kings protest and the people who are calling for this purple revolution, they don't want to do the work. It gives very much too little too late. And when I talk about the work, and when it comes to this unwillingness or refusal to take any level of accountability or do the work that a lot of Black people and people of color talk about, this is in part why so many of us are just really skeptical about this purple revolution. Because would there be this call for unity? Honestly, Think about it. Would there be this call for unity? Would there be these No Kings protests if this administration was only targeting people of color, the LGBTQIA plus community, undocumented immigrants, women, poor people? You know, if you feel called to protest, do just that. But if you're serious about what you're out in these streets marching for, you got to do the work in real life and stand on it when there aren't fun banners and signs to be made and photo ops, you know, pictures to be taken so you can post on Instagram and Facebook to signal to others how good of a person you are and that you showed up. And don't expect pats on the back for doing the right thing, especially if this is what you voted for. That's what you should be doing. You should be doing that. You know, I don't think, listen, I don't think it's helpful to continuously rake people over the coals for how they voted. Let me be clear. What's done is done. Let's be solution oriented because all we can do is move forward, right? What's done is done. Keep moving forward. But I certainly think it's okay to question people's motive, which is exactly what I'm doing now. You know, when it comes to this God, we need you now person, this purple revolution guy who is calling for unity and for people to ignore policies, but to create a new party, this guy won't even give his government name. And I would be very curious as to how much he is making off of these videos on TikTok, off of people's frustration and outrage, because he is monetized on TikTok. He has more than 10,000 followers now. Because, like I said, my spidey senses are tingling. I mean, it's giving grift, but that's just me. That's just me. Drop down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts because I'm very curious about this, especially if you're on TikTok and you've been seeing all of this purple revolution rhetoric going around. So let me know, did you go to the No Kings protest in your city? If your city did have one, have you heard about, you know, the purple revolution? Just let me know because I don't want to sound pessimistic. I don't want to be pedantic. I don't think there's anything wrong with people showing up and fighting for their rights. However, it does not seem that a lot of people, when it comes to the videos that I watch of ex MAGA on social media, very few of them are, I have been seeing everything that's happening and I'm totally against all of this and none of this is okay and this is not what I expected at all. There are less videos like that and more how this impacted them and how all of a sudden it's not okay. But you were okay with it when you thought it was not going to negatively impact you. And so I do think there is a fair amount of deconstruction that needs to be happening. I don't think it can happen in as quick of a time frame that it is happening in. And I certainly think that as you are learning, as you are out there protesting, or even exploring all of the policies that are in place, I don't think you should be taking on a leadership position. And that is my biggest issue with, I mean, not my biggest issue. I have so many issues with everything this purple revolution dude is saying. I do think he is a grifter, and I think he's trying to profit off of people's rage and frustration with everything that is going on. At the same time, one of the things that I find very frustrating is people who are new to a movement and all of a sudden they want to position themselves as leaders without demonstrating that they have done anything that would make them effective leaders in this movement. Like I said, there are already organizations out there that exist in your community that are already doing what you probably think is a new and revolutionary thing. If you're trying to build coalition, if you're trying to, you know, get boots on the ground and start up all of these grassroots organizations and community building and, you know, all of these programs that you think you are creating anew, they already exist. There are a lot of people who have been very passive in what has been happening in their local communities. And all of a sudden they want, because of everything that's happening, they want to jump into the fray. And that's great. However, there are already people on the ground who are very likely already doing everything you feel needs to be done. While this makes me very sad, I think if there's any one sole positive thing that has come from the past few months and everything that's happened, I think it's that people are really leaning into community and are now understanding the power of community and how hard things can be when you are not actively a part of your community. And that is something that capitalism does to us. It makes us very individualistic. It makes us look at everything that's going on from a very me centered experience. But now that at the very least, if it's one positive thing that's come out of all of this, I think more people are leaning on their communities, being impactful members in their communities. And hopefully that will continue to happen if and when things get better in 3.5 years and this new administration comes in. If we have an election, I don't I don't know. But in the next 3.5 years, people's memories are very short. Don't forget this. Show up to the meetings, build, plan, knock on doors, give to your food pantries, give to your communities. We don't need a purple revolution. We need people to vote for the policies and the politicians and the organization. We need people to show up for, to vote for, to be in community with people who are trying to do the most amount of good for the most amount of people. You don't need to be attached to any political party to have that belief in your heart. Do what you feel is going to do the most amount of good for the most amount of people, regardless of political party. Amen. Amen. Drop down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, peace out.